What's up, Seventh Collective family? My name is Vanessa Cruz, and I'm so excited for this conversation. You see, this woman, Jen Bedrossian, is an entrepreneur, a wife, and a mom of two. Mind you, you will be blown away by what she shares today because we're gonna get an inside scoop of how she built her business. She started a business of jewelry called Uncovered Jewelry that supports women that have been trafficked and are struggling till this day, but she's constantly supporting them through her passion. And so I wanna encourage you to take note and let's listen in and learn on her failures, but also learn what she has to share today.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jen Bedrossian, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you today or tonight, whenever you're watching this. I wish that this could be in person or this could be interactive, but I'm hoping that through this video, I'll be able to share a little bit about my business and my journey as an entrepreneur, and just a little bit about the failures that I've encountered and the mistakes that I've made over the past 7 years so that hopefully you can learn something and use that to your advantage. A little bit about me. I was born in Bellflower, not too far from here. I grew up in that area, went to school in Lakewood and Cerritos, and then I went to Cal State Long Beach for college. I have two boys. They're 5 and 7, first grade and pre-K, and I'm married to a wonderful man who runs a shelter for homeless, transitional aged youth that are experiencing homelessness. So social justice is a big core value of our family and plays a big role in our family's day-to-day life. I want to share with you a little bit about my role as an entrepreneur and as a business owner. I started my jewelry company called Uncovered Jewelry back in 2014. And it was actually kind of interesting in preparing for this talk. I was kind of thinking about how it all started yesterday. And yesterday, when this is filming, yesterday was March 8th, which is International Women's Day. And my story for Uncovered actually started on International Women's Day. So I went to an event in 2014, and Christine Kane was the speaker. She's the founder of an organization called A21. And at the time, I didn't know who Christine Kane was. I didn't know A21 or what they did. I didn't know about human trafficking, none of it. But as I sat there and heard her talk about her organization and what she did in the fight against human trafficking, I was truly just floored and really compelled to do something about it. I immediately ran out to the lobby after hearing her talk. I bought her book. I read it cover to cover, I think in 2 days, which says a lot because at the time I also had a, I think, 6-month-old baby. So I was not sleeping a lot and using precious sleeping time to read. So it kind of tells you how much I was really interested in that topic. But I read her book. I read the stories of the women that she was serving, the stories of just the rehabilitation and the transformative power of what they were doing. And I was so compelled to want to be a part of the fight against trafficking. Now, for me, I kind of have to go back a little bit further than that to get to where I'm going here, because when I was in college, I studied classics. So it's kind of an unknown college major, but it's basically the study of ancient Greece and Rome. And my area of focus was Roman archaeology. So I majored in classics, minored in Italian studies, and the bulk of my coursework was language-based, so tons of Latin classes, tons of Italian classes, lots of history, art history, anthropology, archaeology. Basically what I'm getting at is no business classes, zero. I also, was not a social worker. I was not in policy or any type of government work. So fast forward a little bit, when I'm sitting there trying to figure out how can I be a part of the fight against trafficking, I really felt pretty unqualified. After I finished my degree at Cal State Long Beach, I was able to go and use my degree and work on an archaeological dig in Italy for a few years, which was great. And then after that, I ended up working for an Italian cultural museum in downtown Los Angeles. And, I was really feeling like I wanted to do something creative. So I'm at this museum job, doing a lot of development work, still able to kind of use my degree and do, the historical stuff that I loved, but was really desiring to do something creative. I've always been creative my whole life. And so I really do believe that it was God's timing that brought those things together. And as I'm hearing Christine Kane talk and reading her book and really feeling like I wanted to do something creative, I felt like those two things just came together and just overshadowed my own perceived lack of qualification to do something in the fight against trafficking. So I kind of at the time started brainstorming and thinking, how can I be a part of the solution to end trafficking when I have no social work background or no, government background, anything like that I felt like could enact real change. And I started noticing that back in 2014, there were a few companies that were starting to emerge that were really leading with their quote unquote philanthropic foot. They were leading with wanting to do good and leading with wanting to enact change in the world. So you have your Tom's shoes and you had your Warby Parker eyewear and glasses, and they were using their business to generate a revenue to then give back to the communities that they were choosing to work with. And there were also a few smaller companies like the Giving Keys, and they're huge now, but 7 years ago they were still in their kind of beginning growth phase. And then another jewelry company called 31 Bits. And I really was just starting to notice okay, there's a way to create a product and use your product and your platform to not only raise awareness about an issue, but then to generate a revenue to be able to donate and support organizations that are doing this kind of work. And I know, so many of us nowadays, we look at, any business, and that's really the norm now. It's almost more rare to have a business that is not doing something good in today's world. But, 7 years ago, that was not the case. There were not that many. And so I kind of in that moment, I started to think, what could I do? Well, I could create a jewelry company. I could slowly but surely start to kind of get my brand out there, sell my products, and then I could donate to an anti-trafficking organization. So being pretty naive as to what that all entailed, I put one foot in front of the other and just started slowly but surely putting my business together. And I started by talking to Mary White, who, as many of you know, runs Gems Uncovered, and kind of told her about my idea, told her I wanted to start this company and I wanted to give back and I wanted to give back to them. And she was amazing, so supportive right from the very beginning, challenged me to pray for confirmation, which I did. And she really just encouraged me to go for it. And so I started drawing upon the skills that I had learned from previous jobs to give me the things that I needed to create this business. Because like I said, I had no business background, and I'm also not very business minded. I'm definitely more of the creative type. And so to create this business, I really had to kind of start from zero and work my way up. So for example, I took my what I learned from my job in retail, customer service and selling. I'd also been a waitress, like many of us have, and took my skills from being in the hospitality industry and selling there too, and upselling, archaeology, putting in hard work, like manual hard work out in the field. And then also just being methodical, and then drawing from my time at the museum, which was really all about telling a story. And so I was able to kind of draw skills from other jobs that I had had and kind of combine those together to compensate for the lack of business training that I had had. And then also I asked for help when I needed it. So I've never been too proud to ask for help. And right from the very beginning, there was so much that I just truly did not know. One of them actually even being how to make jewelry. I knew that I wanted to do it, and I've always been crafty. I've always been able to put things together and kind of pick things up quickly when it came to making things. But I did my research. I watched YouTube videos, went to jewelry making stores and asked them for help. When it came to business strategy, reached out to a friend who was able to help so much with business strategy and tips. When it came to wholesale and how to price my products, I had a friend who had previously worked for a big department store and was able to help me with that. Don't be afraid to reach out to people that God has placed in your life and ask them to help you. You would be surprised at how often people are willing to do it. But always, 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 always pay for people's time when you ask for help, whether it's paying for their coffee or their lunch or volunteering to do a task that could help them. You always want to be respectful of people's time. And then just kind of learning as I went. I have made so many mistakes over the course of the last year. I have built everything from the bottom up, like social media. I started so slowly. I wanted to be really intentional about creating a authentic and engaged community, but in an organic way. So I've never paid for followers. I've never, bought likes or comments or anything like that. I always wanted it to be just truly authentic, a truly authentic community. And so, just realizing that takes time, and it's going to be a slow and steady process. And trust me, there's been years where it has been very slow, but last year I finally was able to reach 10,000 followers, get that swipe up that everybody always wants. But just again, like, people see that, and maybe people who are newer to my company, and they don't see the past 7 years of building and working hard and frustrations and all of that. So it's just so important that as you're observing other people's businesses, that you never compare your beginning to someone else's middle, because no good is ever going to come from that. And you just have to realize that there's a season and a stage for everything. But just, another thing starting out was really being wise with my resources. I wanted to be really intentional about not accumulating debt in the process of this, obviously, because one of my biggest motivators for starting this company was I wanted to be able to be in a position to give. And so being in debt was kind of opposite of where I was trying to go with my business. And I just really felt from the beginning that I needed to be a good steward of the resources that I was given and not overextend myself. So kind of a phrase that's always been in my head from the beginning was, you need to do what you can with what you have. And that's really just been kind of my mantra from the start, and it still is today. If there's, an investment that I want to make or something that I feel is going to propel my business forward, I really choose not to go into debt over that or not to borrow to get there. I save and will wait and be patient to be able to get to that point. And then just being willing to learn from your mistakes and your failures. Failure can truly propel you forward if you're willing to learn from your mistakes. I really believe that it is the biggest way that you can learn and grow. And I have made so many mistakes over the years. We could be here for hours, but I wanted to share with you a few mistakes in my past couple years that have really helped me learn and grow. Pretty recently, last year actually, there was a woman who came to me on Instagram, and she had kind of a strange request, but had a very big budget. And she wanted a little metal version of like a folding plastic table, like that has the metal legs on it. And she wanted it to be a paperweight. And I have never done any type of jewelry casting before, which is basically working with like a computer CAD designer, coming up with the design for the piece of jewelry. They print it out in wax, and then it gets turned into a mold to be cast into metal and then into jewelry. I hope that made sense. But I had kind of done a little bit with it, but never to the point where anything was like in production on my website for sale. So I was still very kind of new in that area. So she came to me with this project, had, again, a very big budget for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. Let's try it. Let's give it a go. And it literally turned out to be the biggest failure. She paid me for the project. I paid the CAD designer to do it. And then just down the line, the casters were not able to do the project just because of the scale and how tiny it was, and things were breaking. It was a disaster. And I ended up having to refund her everything. And it was a loss for me because I had already paid the CAD designer and paid the casters and stuff like that. And, I was telling my husband at the time, gosh, this feels like such a fail. Like, I was so upset. I was so kind of embarrassed that I had to go back to her and say, I'm so sorry, but I'm not able to actually finish this job for you. But in all of that, it really taught me to trust my gut, because from the beginning, I knew if I had to listen to myself that was not in my wheelhouse at the moment. And I was really stretching myself to try to do something that I really didn't have a full grasp on yet. So learning just to trust my gut. And then also that saying no to somebody when they come to you with a project is not a sign of weakness or a sign of being incapable, which is really what I felt at the time. And saying no is okay. And that was something that I learned from that project. Another big kind of mistake or failure that I've had is back in 2019, I was asked to do a month-long pop-up at a kind of like an outdoor mall in Brentwood. If you know anything about Brentwood, it is a very nice neighborhood. And I immediately was like, that's such a great place to have a presence and have my jewelry and have a store. And, it is pretty far away from Long Beach. And they sent me pictures and the whole thing, and it looked great, and it was really cute, looked beautiful. And so I signed on for the whole month, and it was expensive for me. Little did I know, the shopping mall that it was in was pretty much deserted. There was like no other big stores. There was one little restaurant, no foot traffic. And I basically went the whole month with like a couple customers here and there. It was so rough. It was 2 hours there, 2 hours back every day. It just felt like such a waste of time and money and resources. But I will say that through that process, it really taught me to be wise when signing on to things, do my research. If I would have even have taken a trip out there to see the store for myself, I really quickly probably could have realized this place is empty and this is probably not a good idea. But I didn't take the time to do that, and I paid the price. So that's another example of a failed experience. And then lastly, failed events. I do lots of events and lots of pop-ups, and I miss them a lot because I haven't done one in like over a year because of COVID, obviously. But, pre-pandemic, I was always doing, pop-ups and getting to talk to customers and doing events and stuff like that. And a lot of these events you have to pay for when they're bigger conferences or whatever. And there was one time I paid, I think it was like $400 to be part of this big women's convention down in San Diego, and made tons of jewelry for it, drove down there, set up, and there were supposed to be thousands of women at this thing. It turned out that they had really oversold us on the capacity or the number of people attending the conference. And I think we maybe had like 5 people come through all day. It just felt like such a waste of time and such a waste of money and resources. But again, I was able to make so many good connections that day with other business owners and even with the people who had organized the conference. I know that they were really let down too and felt really horrible. So for me, that experience was just really being in charge of your perspective. I could have walked away from that feeling angry and bitter and really let down and discouraged, but I chose to see the good in it. I chose to be grateful for the connections that I made and just to take that away instead. I think it's really important that as we go through business, as we go through life even, and experience these types of failures or mistakes, to not be closed-fisted with it, but to be open-handed with those lessons that you learn. You don't need to feel embarrassed or ashamed when you make a mistake or you experience a failure. Other people can learn from that, and there's nothing to be embarrassed about. So you need to be able to share what you've experienced and what you've gone through with others. I really believe that it's important to be generous with not only your time and your resources, but just your experience as well, especially in business and as an entrepreneur. I talk to so many women, especially who are looking to start something and don't know where to begin and come to me for advice. And it does take time to be able to talk to people and offer advice and listen and be a part of their journey. But I truly believe that it is so worth it. Everybody starts somewhere. I think it's so important to, no matter how big you get or however many followers you have or how many sales you make, it is so important to remember that you started somewhere. I have to remind myself that I was once the person who knew nothing about running a business or what to do. And I reached out to so many people who were so kind and generous that poured into me and my business and my story, that I also need to return that favor and pay it forward. And just remembering that we need to focus on community over competition too. I think a lot of times, if someone comes to me, I want to start a jewelry company, what should I do? There's a tendency to kind of want to hold on to your trade secrets or, the suppliers or the resources that I have. And I have to remind myself time and time again that there is room for everybody to succeed. And it's okay to share those things. There's no reason to hoard resources or hoard information that is not going to get you to where you want to go. You have to be open-handed and you have to be willing to share, and just remember that there's room for everyone. And yeah, that's kind of just what I wanted to share with you guys today. I want to be a resource for you. I'm happy to answer questions or, offer up any resources or tips that I have if it can be helpful. You could find me on Instagram at Uncovered Jewelry and online at uncoveredjewelry.com. And I hope that you found this helpful today and that you were able to learn. And I just want to encourage you, if you have a dream in your heart and there's something that you feel called to do, just do it. Don't hold back. Life is too short, and you'll never know unless you try. So thank you.
I'm so grateful that Jen Bedrossian was able to be real and raw, sharing all her mistakes with us. I don't know about you, but it really helped me to feel like I'm not alone. I love what she said, trust your gut, and that saying no is not a weakness or doesn't mean that we're incapable. So I hope that you were encouraged as well. And hey, if you are in need to be in a community, life groups is for you. We always do this. Don't do life alone. We say it all the time. And so, hey, if you need to be plugged into a life group, email us at connect@lifeatrevive.com, and we can connect you with other people who are in their 20s and 30s so that you can do life with others and continue to encourage each other for the future. We hope to see you next time.